Welcome back, friends. So in the current lecture we are learning about the various methods of performance appraisal. So as I stated that there are broadly two methods, past oriented and future oriented. So now we are learning about the past oriented methods. Moving further, the next method that we are going to discuss is the essay method. So in the essay method, the rater describes the employee within a number of broad categories, and these are broadly 5 categories under which the employee is described or evaluated. That is the rater's overall impression of employee's performance. The second is promotability of employee, jobs that employee is now able or qualified to perform. Number 4 is the strengths and weaknesses of the employee and the training and development assistance required by employee. So these are the 5 categories under which the rater will describe the level of performance of the employee. Now the strength of this method depends on the writing skills and the analytical ability of the rater. Though it is time consuming, but it is a good method of appraisal, but at the same time it depends on the memory of the rater, that is how good you are able to memorize the various skills or the abilities of the employees. Now friends, moving further, the second category of methods of employees performance appraisal is future oriented appraisals. Now how an employee can perform in the days to come is also important. So here we are not talking of your current level of performance, but how you can improve, how you can perform in the coming future. So this can be assessed by focusing on employees' potential or setting the future performance goals. So the common used methods for the future oriented techniques are the MBO or the management by objectives. Then there are psychological appraisals. Then there is a method called assessment centers, 360-degree appraisal, etc. So coming to the first and most important is the management by objectives. So this technique was developed by Peter Drucker, and it reflects a management philosophy which values and utilizes employee contributions. That is, what is the level of contribution of an employee towards the organizational goals. It is most useful with managerial personnel and employees having a wide range of flexibility and self-control in their jobs. Now moving further, let's understand the process or the steps involved in an MBO technique. First and foremost, you have to establish the goals that each subordinate is to attain. Then setting the performance standard for subordinates in a previously arranged time period. The next step is to the actual level of goal attainment is compared with the goals agreed upon. And lastly, establishing new goals and strategies for the goals that were not previously attained. So these are the steps or the process of the MBO technique. Next comes the psychological appraisals. So many large organizations today employ a full-time industrial psychologist for evaluating the performances of their employees. They assess an individual's future potential and not the past performances. So that is why this comes under the category of future oriented method. Now here the appraisal consists of in-depth interviews, there are psychological tests, there are discussions with the supervisors and review of other evaluations as well. Now the psychologist then writes an evaluation of the employee's intellectual, emotional, motivational and other related characteristics that suggest individual potential, and it may also predict the future performance. So from these evaluations, the placement and development decisions may be made to shape the person's career. So it actually helps in the growth and development of an employee's career. It helps in their career advancement. Now coming to the next method, it is the assessment center. So it is not something that is related to some center in an organization, but assessment center is a technique that is used for appraising the performance of individuals. So it is used mainly for executive hiring. It is now being used for evaluating the executive or supervisory potential, and it is normally a central location where managers may come together to have their participation in job related exercises that are evaluated by trained observers. The idea here is to evaluate managers over a period of time by observing and later on evaluating their behavior across a series of select exercises. So there are certain exercises that are given to the employees, and the managers have to evaluate over a period of time by observing people who are performing those exercises. So the characteristics assessed in a typical assessment center, these include through exercises what we will be judging would be assertiveness, the persuasive ability, the communicating ability, planning and organizational ability, the self-confidence, the resistance to stress, decision making abilities, how sensitive we are towards the feelings of others, empathy is there, then what are our ability to administrate, then creative thinking, creativity and mental alertness. So all these aspects of an individual, of an employee can be understood through this type of exercise or the assessment center technique. So the advantages of this method is that it is highly reliable, there is content validity and predictive validity. All these are very high when we are talking of assessment centers, and the test makes sure that wrong people are not hired or promoted, because when you are giving certain exercises to the individuals, you are clearly going to understand how he or she communicates with others, how is he giving importance to others' feelings, how is he managing conflicts, how is he communicating. So all these aspects of an individual's personality comes into the front. So the one who is rating individuals can easily judge or evaluate these aspects of the employee's personality. Then the test clearly defines the criteria for selection and promotion. So we know that these methods can be used in selection as well as in promotion or promoting an employee from lower level to a higher level position. So as far as the disadvantages of this method assessment center is concerned, it is costly of course, and it is time consuming. Then the ratings are strongly influenced by participants' interpersonal skills. So if a person has strong interpersonal skills, he might be able to influence his rating, and but those interpersonal skills do not reflect actually what his performance is, what his understanding of the job is, or what his knowledge level is. But just because he or she has good interpersonal skills or maybe good communication skills, he might be able to influence the results. Then there is a possibility of overemphasizing on the test performance. There can be strong or unhealthy sense of competition among assessees, because here you are given a task or you are given a particular exercise to be done. So when all the people, all the employees are performing those exercises, those can lead to some unhealthy competition. Then there is difficulty of conducting tests frequently. So these cannot be conducted very frequently because there is a procedure and a process has to be followed. So that is why we consider this to be a disadvantage of the assessment center method of performance appraisal. So the next method is the 360-degree feedback. So in the 360-degree feedback, there are multiple raters within the organization who are involved or who will be evaluating the performance of an employee. There is a systematic collection of performance data on an individual or a group of individuals. It can be a team or a work group, which is derived from a number of stakeholders, and these stakeholders could be immediate supervisors, it could be team members, it could be peers or even self. So even you yourself would be assessing or appraising your own performance, which is called self-appraisal. So that is why it is called a 360-degree feedback, whereby you are taking the feedback from all the people, all the stakeholders that are involved. So coming to the features of 360-degree feedback, well, it provides a broader perspective about an employee's performance, because as an individual I might be very good with my subordinates, I might be very good with my peer, but I might not be good with my superiors, or vice versa. So when we talk of 360-degree feedback, we are taking a more holistic approach, we are taking a more broader approach while we are assessing an employee's performance, which is, I think, very important. So this method, it facilitates greater self-development of employees, because you get to understand, or you get to have the feedback back from so many people who are whom you are surrounded by, your supervisors, your clients, your customers, your peers, your friends at workplace. So all these people, when they give a feedback, some things would be good, some things might not be that good. So here you get a chance to develop yourself, you get a chance to understand your mistakes and your weaknesses. And for one's development, multi-source feedback is definitely highly useful. So these are some of the features of this. Then it enables an employee to compare the perceptions about self with perceptions of others. So this is very, very pertinent, talking of how we perceive ourselves and how others perceive us. So if there is a gap, that means something is lacking in your personality, that needs to be checked, that needs to be monitored, and that needs to be taken care of. So if you perceive yourself as a good or a helpful person, but the others perceive the opposite way, that means there is some lack in self-awareness. You are not aware of your own shortcomings. So that is again important. Then it provides a formalized communication links between employee and customers. So obviously when you are taking feedback from customers, there is a communication link that develops. Then it makes employee feel much more accountable to his or her external or internal customers. So since in this method we are taking feedback from the customers and clients also, so you become more accountable, because you know if you will not, you are not giving them proper service, or you are not dealing with them in an amicable or respectful manner, then they might give a negative feedback. So here that will again improve your dealing with the customers. Then what are the pitfalls or limitations? Well, it takes a long time on selecting the raters, designing questionnaires, and analyzing the data. And since this method involves multiple raters, so they might be less adept at providing a balanced and objective feedback than supervisors who are sought to be replaced. Then the raters can have enormous problems separating honest observations from personal differences and biases. So there are multiple raters, as I said, but here in this method also the personal biases or personal differences can also cloud or influence the appraisal of the individual. And then again it is a very time consuming method, because you have to collect the data from so many people or so many stakeholders that are involved. So why appraisals fail? So the appraiser lacks the information that is concerning an employee's actual performance. Then the standards by which to evaluate an employee's performance are unclear. So as we learnt about the process of evaluation, we learned that it is very important that whatever standards that you are setting for appraisal, for evaluation, those standards have to be clearly communicated to the employees, so that they are aware as to what is being evaluated, how we have to perform, so that we are able to attain the goals of the organization in sync with my personal goals. So that standards by which to evaluate an employee's performance are unclear. When these are unclear, the appraisals will fail. Obviously, if somebody is assessing my XY skills, but I am not aware that what is to be evaluated, if I am not clear as to what observations are being made about me, I will not be able to perform well. So sometimes the appraiser does not take appraisal seriously. So most of the times when the supervisors or the managers are busy, they do not take appraisals seriously, and here's where the rater errors creep in, and they just give average response and average feedbacks to every employee, even if they are good, they are excellent, or even if they are not good. So they are all given the average level of performance. Now coming to appraising the performance, how do you appraise the performance? What do you appraise? So an assessment should focus on these four aspects. First is the individual traits, second is the behaviors exhibited, fourth is the skills or the knowledge that you possess, and last is the results achieved. So let's learn about each one of these. First being individual traits. Now this angle, it assumes that certain traits drive performance and such characteristics should be assessed. So very important, there are certain traits that actually lead to performance. These could be interpersonal relations, communication, planning, organizing task, judgment, autonomy, work accuracy and work quantity. So these are certain traits which are possessed by an individual. Level could be up and down. So everybody is communicating, everybody is planning, everybody is working for the accuracy, but what is the level? Are you communicating properly? Are you having good interpersonal relations? Are you planning up to the mark? Is your planning good? So these individual traits are the ones that actually lead to the performance of an individual. Next is the behavioral traits. So it is not just an individual traits, but how your behavior also impacts your performance. So this is based on the belief that performance is driven by behaviors exhibited, such as actions need to be measured. So therefore identify the actions to be measured, selecting different behaviors for different jobs from a pool based on those characteristics considered to be important for a job. So every job would require a different set of behaviors that an individual must have. So a scientist's job is different from the job of a teacher. A teacher's job is different from the job of say a lawyer. So all these jobs require different behaviors. So we need to first identify that what needs to be measured. What are you measuring? As a teacher, I should have good communication. I should be able to understand my classroom. I should be able to understand the level of my students. So every job has a different set of behaviors. So we need to make a pool of those jobs and those behaviors and then decide what needs to be checked, what needs to be assessed. Next is the knowledge or the skills possessed. So very important aspect. Apart from individual traits and your behavioral traits, the next is the knowledge that you possess regarding your job. So this assessment is appropriate for production workers and clerical staff, and it is based on the assumption that certain competencies, they drive performance and such skills or knowledge should be measured. The next is the result based assessment. So the result based assessment means that every organization, you know, we all want results, we all want achievement. So it is used for administrators, managers, most professionals and executives. They are the targets for this assessment. So the results can be of two types. One is the ones that are quantifiable, and the second ones are the ones that are non-quantifiable. So it is qualified for assessment as, for example, the scale volumes, the units produced, meeting the quality standards, etc. So these are the quantifiable indicators. And what are the non-quantifiable indicators? Well, the non-quantifiable indicators are the product knowledge, the kind of relationship you have, decision making, how good you are in taking quick decisions. Your adaptability can be a non-quantifiable indicator. Then how good you are at making relations with your people. And then is the communication, how well you are communicating with your people. So next comes that why appraisals fail. So why appraisals fail is because the appraiser is not prepared for appraisal review with the employee, and at times appraiser doesn't know what is to be appraised. So that is why appraisals fail, and appraiser might not be honest or sincere during evaluation. So we had discussed a number of pitfalls, a number of problems, a number of errors that do creep in while we are appraising the performance of the individuals. These are called rating errors. So at times the appraiser himself is not honest, and due to personal differences he might not be giving an honest response or honest evaluation. Then there are chances that the appraiser himself lacks appropriate skills. So that is also very important when you are appraising somebody, when you are evaluating the performance of your employees, you yourself must be aware as to what to evaluate depending on what job he or she is performing. If a person is doing a desk job and less of communication is required, then you cannot appraise that person on communication skills. So that skills the appraiser himself must possess. That is how, or that is only when you can be evaluating the person in a proper manner. Then employees at times they do not receive ongoing performance feedback. So the performance appraisal actually fails when you are not giving the right feedback to the employee. If there are certain problems in my working, in my performance, and if I do not come to know, if nobody gives me the feedback, then how will I improve my performance? So most of the times the performance appraisal fails because the employee does not receive a proper feedback in time. Then there are at times there are insufficient resources are provided to reward performance. So if somebody is performing well, he or she must be rewarded for that performance. It can be in the form of a bonus, a pay hike, or maybe a promotion. But if that is not rewarded, again the performance appraisal fails. Then there is ineffective discussion of employee development. That is also very important when you are appraising the performance. The outcome should be that every employee should develop, every employee should attain a higher level of performance. So if that is not there, the employee is not performing. Then the appraiser uses unclear or ambiguous language in the evaluation process. That I had already emphasized when we talk of the process of performance appraisal, that whatever you have to evaluate, you must clearly, precisely explain these things to the person whom you are evaluating or your employees. They must have a clear understanding as to what is being evaluated. So friends, in today's lecture we discussed about the various methods of performance appraisal. So performance appraisal, as we said, is a very crucial component or very crucial function of the human resource management, where we discuss, where we evaluate the level of performance of an employee so that he or she can be promoted, can be given a department can be changed, or some more responsibilities can be added. So we discussed about certain methods which were divided into past oriented and future oriented methods. We learnt about each one of these methods along with their features, along with the advantages and their disadvantages, and in the end we learnt as to why at times what are the limitations of performance appraisals and why do at times appraisals fail due to lack of sincerity, lack of honesty from the appraisal, or there are lack of skills, evaluative skills from the side of the appraiser. Then there are prejudices, there are stereotypes, there are rating errors that lead to wrong appraisal. A person who is a low performer may be highlighted as a high performer, or a person who is performing well may be getting a low ranking or low marks in the performances. So these are certain aspects of performance appraisal, a very crucial aspect of human resource development. So thank you for now.